Every border on Earth is an invention. Someone at some point drew a line on a map and decided that on this side you live under one government, and one step over there, you live under another. Usually those lines follow something that makes sense: a river, a mountain range, a coastline, and sometimes they follow absolutely nothing at all. Here's what's coming. Number 6 is a border that was redrawn into the shape of the letter S, and neither country gained or lost a single square meter of land. Number 4 is a piece of land the size of a small country that two nations are actively fighting not to own. Number 3 contained a place that was inside a country, inside another country, inside another country, inside another country. And the final border on this list is one you can cross by walking to a bookshelf. Let's start with number 7. The border that runs through your living room. In the south of the Netherlands, there is a town called Baarle. Or rather, there are two towns called Baarle occupying exactly the same space. Baarle-Nassau is Dutch. Baarle-Hertog is Belgian. And they are not next to each other. They are inside each other. There are 22 Belgian enclaves scattered inside the Dutch town. And inside 7 of those Belgian pieces, there are smaller Dutch pieces. A Dutch island inside a Belgian island inside the Netherlands. On Google Earth, it looks like someone spilled a puzzle. The borders are painted directly onto the streets. White crosses running across roads, through gardens, and straight through buildings. There are houses where the kitchen is in Belgium and the bedroom is in the Netherlands. So how do you decide which country a house belongs to? There is an actual rule for this. Your nationality is determined by your front door, which means that when Belgian and Dutch restaurants had different closing times, some restaurants moved their front door a few meters to stay open longer. Legally. Some houses have 2 house numbers and 2 doorbells, one Dutch, one Belgian. And during a pandemic, when one country closed its shops and the other didn't, shopkeepers put tape on the floor and simply sold from the other half of the room. It sounds like a joke. It's the single most complicated town border on Earth, and it has existed since the year 1198. The island with the S-shaped border. In the middle of the Baltic Sea between Sweden and Finland, there is a rock called Märket. It's about 3 hectares. That's smaller than 4 football fields. It has no trees, no soil, no fresh water, and no permanent residents. And it is split between 2 countries. In 1809, the border was drawn straight through the middle. Simple, clean. Then, in 1885, Finland built a lighthouse on the island and accidentally built it on the Swedish half. Nobody noticed for decades. When they finally did, the countries had a problem. Moving a border means one country gains land and the other loses it. So in 1985, they did something extraordinary. They redrew the border into an S shape. The line now curves around the lighthouse to put it in Finland, and then curves back the other way somewhere else, giving Sweden exactly the same amount of land in return. 2 identical bends canceling each other out. The result is that the smallest sea island in the world, shared by 2 countries, has one of the most complicated borders in existence. For a lighthouse that has been automated and empty for years. The islands that are 21 hours apart. In the Bering Strait between Alaska and Siberia, there are 2 islands. Big Diomedes belongs to Russia. Little Diomedes belongs to the United States, and they are 3.8 kilometers apart. From one, you can clearly see the other, but between them runs the international date line, which means when it's Saturday morning on the American island, it's already Sunday morning on the Russian one. The locals call them Tomorrow Island and Yesterday Island. You can stand on a beach in the United States and look at tomorrow. In winter, the sea between them freezes solid. In theory, you could walk from America to Russia in a couple of hours across the ice. In practice, that border is one of the most sensitive on Earth. During the Cold War, it became known as the Ice Curtain. Families of the same indigenous people, the Inupiat, were split between the 2 islands and forbidden to visit each other. Russia evacuated the entire population of Big Diomede to the mainland. Today, Big Diomede has no civilians at all, just a Russian military and weather station. 2 islands, 4 kilometers apart. One with a village, one with soldiers, and a full day between them. The land nobody wants. Every piece of land on Earth is claimed by somebody. Every single one except Antarctica, and one strange rectangle in the desert. Bir Tawil sits on the border between Egypt and Sudan. It's about 2,000 square kilometers, bigger than some countries, and officially neither Egypt nor Sudan wants it. Here's why. There are 2 different versions of the border between them, a straight administrative line from 1899 and a more practical line from 1902. Under one of those lines, Bir Tawil belongs to Egypt, but a much bigger and much more valuable coastal region called the Dahala Triangle belongs to Sudan. Under the other line, it's the exact opposite. So both countries insist on the version that gives them the valuable coastline. And accepting that version means rejecting Bir Tawil. The result: a piece of land the size of Luxembourg that 2 governments are actively arguing against owning. It is the only genuinely unclaimed habitable land on the planet, which is why over the years people have tried to claim it themselves. An American man traveled there and planted a flag to make his daughter a princess. An Indian man declared it a kingdom online. Several micronations claim it from their bedrooms. None of them are recognized by anyone. Bir Tawil remains empty desert, the only place on Earth that nobody wants. A country inside. A country inside. A country inside. A country. On the border of India and Bangladesh, there used to be the most insane border situation in human history. Not a border. 198 borders. There were 198 enclaves. Pieces of India completely surrounded by Bangladesh, and pieces of Bangladesh completely surrounded by India. The story goes that they came from centuries-old card games and chess matches between local kings, who wagered villages. And inside those enclaves, there were counter-enclaves. Pieces of India inside pieces of Bangladesh inside India. And then there was Dahala Khagrabari. It was a piece of India inside a piece of Bangladesh, inside a piece of India inside Bangladesh. The world's only counter enclave, a jute field about the size of a football pitch, 4 countries deep. For the roughly 50,000 people living in these enclaves, this wasn't funny. They were effectively stateless. Their own country was unreachable. To get there, they had to illegally cross the country surrounding them. So there were no police, no schools, no hospitals, no electricity. For over 60 years. In 2015, India and Bangladesh finally signed an agreement and simply swapped the enclaves. In a single midnight, tens of thousands of people changed country without moving a single meter. They lit candles and celebrated in the fields. It was by land area one of the most peaceful border exchanges ever made. The most complicated border on Earth was solved with a signature. The most dangerous place on Earth is a nature reserve. The border between North and South Korea is 250 kilometers long and about 4 kilometers wide. It's called the Demilitarized Zone, and it's the most heavily militarized place on the planet. An estimated 1 million landmines, watchtowers, electric fences, and roughly 2 million soldiers stationed on either side of it. No human has farmed, built, hunted, or walked freely inside that strip since 1953. And that accident of history created something nobody planned. For 70 years, this thin strip of land has been the safest place in Korea, if you're not human. Species that are nearly extinct everywhere else in the country are thriving here. Red-crowned cranes, one of the rarest birds on Earth, spend their winters in a minefield. Asiatic black bears, musk deer. There is evidence of the Amur leopard. Scientists have identified over 5,000 species inside a zone that people cannot enter. It's the only place on Earth where the threat of war created a wildlife sanctuary. Biologists call it an accidental Eden, a nature reserve guarded by two of the largest armies in the world and protected by landmines. And if the two countries ever make peace, conservationists are genuinely worried about what happens to it. The border through the library. The final border on this list is the smallest and my favorite. In the town of Darby Line, Vermont, there is a building called the Haskell Free Library and Opera House. It was built in 1904 deliberately, directly on top of the border between the United States and Canada. Inside, there is a black line running across the floor. On one side of that line, the United States. On the other, Canada. The front entrance is in the United States. Most of the books are in Canada. In the Opera House upstairs, the stage is in Canada, and almost the entire audience sits in the United States. Which means technically this is the only opera house in the world where the performers and the audience are in different countries. For over a century, this was a place where two nations casually blended. Canadians could walk in the front door without crossing an official border checkpoint. Families separated by immigration rules would meet inside, in the reading room, sitting on opposite sides of a strip of tape, legally in their own countries close enough to hold hands. That's what a border actually is. Not a wall, not a river, just an agreement. A line on a floor between two rooms of books. Every border in this video started the same way. Someone drew a line and everyone agreed to pretend it was real. A town where your nationality depends on your front door. An island with an S-shaped border for an empty lighthouse. 2 islands a day apart, land nobody wants. And a library where the stage is in another country. Which border broke your brain the most? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And there are far weirder ones I couldn't fit into this video. So this is part 1. Part 2 is coming, with a country that is completely surrounded by another country, twice over, a border that moves every year, and a village that is legally in 2 countries at the same time. Subscribe so you don't miss it.